The house didn't feel broken. That was the strange part. Nothing was smashed, no doors slammed, no voices raised. The plates still matched. The lights still worked. We still said good morning and good night, like people following a script they'd memorized years ago and never questioned again. We had been sleeping in separate rooms for almost 6 months. Not after a fight. Not after a betrayal I could point to. It just happened. First it was my snoring, then her back, then her early mornings, my late nights. Practical reasons, reasonable reasons. The kind that sound responsible when you say them out loud. We didn't argue about it, which felt mature at the time. Two adults respecting each other's space. That's what I told myself. That's what I told anyone who asked how things were going. How's married life? Good. Quiet is a word people use when they don't want to explain the absence of something important. We still shared meals, still discussed bills, still laughed at the same shows. From the outside, we looked stable. Inside the house, everything was careful, like walking around furniture in a dark room you know by heart, but still don't trust. There was no intimacy, no accidental touches, no lingering looks. If we hugged, it was brief, polite, the kind you give a relative you respect, but don't miss. I noticed things, of course you always do. New routines, longer showers, phone tilted away from me on the couch. A new energy when she left the house and a quiet exhaustion when she came back. None of it screamed anything. It whispered. And whispers are easy to ignore when you don't want to hear them. I told myself, people go through phases. Marriages do this. We were just recalibrating. That was the word I used. Recalibrating? The morning Melissa told me she was pregnant, the house was especially quiet. I was at the kitchen table with my coffee, scrolling through emails I wasn't really reading. She stood in the doorway longer than usual, like she was waiting for a cue. I felt her presence before I looked up. She didn't sit down. That should have been my first warning. I need to tell you something, she said. Her voice wasn't shaking. It wasn't excited either. It was controlled, measured, like someone trying to keep a balloon from floating away. I set my phone down and gave her my full attention. I remember thinking very clearly that whatever she was about to say would change something. Not dramatically, not loudly, but permanently. I'm pregnant. She waited, not just for my reaction, for something specific. Joy, relief, gratitude, maybe even redemption. Like this was supposed to fix something we hadn't named. For a split second, I felt something like surprise. Then my mind did what it always does. It went quiet and started lining things up. I looked at her face. She was watching me carefully, reading me the way you read a room when you already know there might be smoke. I smiled first. Congratulations, I said. The word landed between us and stayed there. Not warm, not cold, just present. Her shoulders relaxed a little. Not fully, but enough to tell me she had been bracing for something else, something worse. Really? She asked, searching my face. Yeah, I said, that's big news. She stepped closer to the table, resting her hands on the back of the chair across from me. I noticed then that she hadn't reached for me. No hug, no shared moment, just proximity. I took another sip of coffee, tasted the same as always. Then I asked the question. It wasn't sharp, it wasn't angry. It wasn't angry. I didn't raise my voice or change my expression. Came out calm, almost curious. When was your last period? The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. No gasp, no tears, just a pause long enough to feel intentional. Her eyes didn't leave mine, but something in them shifted. The careful balance she'd been holding tipped just slightly. Why does that matter right now? She asked. I leaned back in my chair. Well, I said, still calm. You're not angry. I considered the question carefully. Anger was loud. This wasn't loud. No, I said. I'm clear. She frowned. Clear about what? About where we are, I replied. And where we aren't. The room felt smaller then, like the walls had leaned in to listen. She opened her mouth to say something else. Maybe an apology, maybe a plea, maybe a revision of the past that made this feel less final. I didn't stop her, but I also didn't help, because some moments aren't meant to be argued through. They're meant to be understood. And I understood, with painful precision, that whatever story she'd been living for the last 6 months, I hadn't been a character in it. She stayed at the table long after I moved away from it, like if she didn't stand up, the conversation might not progress to its next unavoidable phase. I went to my room, not our old bedroom, but the one that had become mine over months of quiet agreement, and sat on the edge of the bed. The house had learned our separation. Doors closed softly now, footsteps adjusted. Even the air felt trained. After a while, she knocked. Not the knock of someone asking permission. The knock of someone reminding you they still live there. "Can we talk?" she asked through the door. "We are talking," I replied. She came in anyway, sat on the chair by the window, careful not to cross an invisible line between us. The light from outside cut across her face, and for a second, she looked like someone I used to know very well. "I don't want this to end like this," she said. I nodded. "It already has." She shook her head. "You're doing that thing again, deciding quietly. Without me." I looked at her. "You decided quietly, too. That's different." "It's not." "It's not." She leaned forward. "I made a mistake." "Mistakes are accidental," I said. "Patterns are choices." Her eyes filled then. Real tears this time. They didn't move me the way they once would have. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood what they were asking for. They wanted relief, forgiveness, a way out of consequences. "I was lonely," she said. "I felt unwanted." "So did I replied. "I just didn't invite someone else into our marriage." She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I waited, not out of cruelty, out of respect for the moment. When she lowered her hands, her voice was quieter. "He says he'll be there," she whispered. "For the baby, for me." I didn't react. That wasn't my role anymore. "That's good," I said. She looked confused. "You're really okay with this?" "No," I said honestly, "but I'm done pretending." "Okay means staying." Silence stretched between us again, thicker now, heavier. She glanced around the room at the sparse furniture, the folded clothes, the absence of her things. "You were already preparing to leave," she said. "I was preparing to be honest with myself," I replied. "Those aren't the same." She stood up slowly. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to keep my job. I'm going to sleep through the night. I'm going to stop questioning my own reality. And us." I met her eyes. There hasn't been an us for a while. She opened her mouth, then closed. There were no new arguments left, only recycled ones, and neither of us had the energy to pretend they'd work this time. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "I know," I replied, "but intention doesn't cancel impact." She left the room without another word. I heard her door close. Then nothing. That night, I lay awake listening to the house breathe, pipes settling, wind against the windows, familiar sounds that suddenly felt temporary. I wasn't grieving the marriage anymore. I was grieving the version of myself that kept waiting for proof that something was wrong before allowing himself to leave. The proof had arrived quietly, clearly, undeniably, and for the first time since she'd said the word pregnant, I felt something solid underneath the sadness. Relief. Morning came without ceremony. No dramatic sunrise, no emotional reckoning waiting in the hallway, just light slipping through the blinds like it always had. I woke before my alarm and lay there for a moment, listening. Her door stayed closed. That told me enough. I made coffee. The routine felt steady, grounding. I didn't rush. I'm in a rush. I didn't check my phone. I stood by the counter and let the day arrive on its own terms. She came into the kitchen a few minutes later, already dressed, keys in hand. Her eyes were tired, swollen, but focused, like someone who had spent the night rehearsing how to act normal. "I'm going to my sister's," she said, not asking, informing. "Okay," she hesitated. "I'll be back later to grab some things." "That's fine." She nodded, clearly unsure what to do with my calm. Then she left. The door clicked shut behind her, clean and final. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at the empty doorway, not waiting for her to come back, just acknowledging that she hadn't. That day I called a lawyer, not out of spite, out of clarity. I wanted facts, timelines, options. I wanted my decisions rooted in reality, not emotion. The lawyer asked questions. I answered honestly, no exaggerations, no dramatics, just the truth as it was. I also called my brother. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer advice I didn't ask for. He just listened. Sometimes that's all you need, to be heard without being steered. When she came back that evening, the house felt different, lighter, less expectant. She packed quietly, clothes, toiletries, a few personal items she must have already decided mattered more than the rest. "I'll come back for the rest later," she said. "You don't have to," I replied. "We can coordinate." She looked at me then, really looked like she was trying to find the version of me she remembered, the one who would argue or plead or crack. I never thought you'd be this composed, she said. I wasn't always, I replied. I just am now. She nodded slowly. I don't know what happens next. I do, I said. Just not with us. She swallowed, then picked up her bag. At the door she paused. I'm sorry, she said. This time it sounded different, less defensive, more resigned. I know, I replied. I believe you. That surprised her. Apologies usually want something in return. Forgiveness, reconciliation, permission to stay close. I offered none of those, just acknowledgement. After she left, I walked through the house room by room, not to mourn, to inventory, to decide what stayed and what didn't. I opened windows, let fresh air in, changed the sheets in my room, threw out expired things I'd been ignoring for years. In the evening, I sat down at the same kitchen table where she told me the news. The chair across from me was empty. I noticed how natural that felt. I thought about the question I'd asked. Simple, logical, unavoidable. It hadn't been cruel. It hadn't been clever. It had just been honest. Facts don't raise their voices. They don't accuse. They wait patiently until someone is brave enough to ask the right question. She had hoped joy would carry the moment. That excitement would outrun the math. It almost worked. Almost. But truth has a way of slowing things down. Later that night, I slept deeply. No dreams, no replaying conversations, just rest. 6 months apart had taught us how to live separately under one roof. One question had taught me how to leave without running. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was losing something. I felt like I was finally keeping it.